the Doctor, this is my section. Earth is under my protection. My planet of birth is Gallifrey. I've got 2 hearts, your life is safe. Run into the Master Raw Missy. Come on, Alonzo. Alonzi. I am a Time Lord. No, I'm not Rick. 12 bodies and men. Now it's time for a switch. Don't look like that. I'm in great health. You were expecting someone else. Regeneration. Oh, such fun. When I say run, run, run. What's up, my boy? Peace and sanity. Sorry, mustache. Reverse the polarity. Sometimes I'm north, but always a limey. Wibbly wobbly, timey-wimey. Jump in the TARDIS, go for a ride. It's bigger on the inside. Exploring all of time and space. Oh, what's that? Exterminate.
Cyberman, a Daleks, baby.
Would you like a jelly, baby? Time's ticking, we'd best go. A new adventure, Geronimo! I am fantastic, so are you. Best come with me, I'm Doctor Who. Welcome to a brand new episode of D4WH. I am one of your hosts. I'm Adam O'Sullivan. Joining me as always is our other host, the lovely Nicchia Schutt.
Hello.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good, the lovely Adam.
Oh, thank you very much.
Yes, I think we're both very lovely.
We are your lovely hosts. Today we are joined by lovely broadcaster, lovely Scott Black.
Hello, thank you. It's nice to be lovely.
We can all be lovely together.
That's right.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. Thanks for having me. And of course, usually I'll give unsolicited Doctor Who rantings. Normally when people want my coffee order, they don't want to talk about Paul McGann or Colin Baker at that stage.
Oh, I'm so sorry. You're going to the wrong coffee houses.
I know. We need a Doctor Who-based coffee house.
Well, we'll start it then.
It's a very niche market, but anyway.
It is.
Do you want to do a short intro for yourself and talk about your history with Doctor Who?
Sure. So, as you can hear from the unfortunate accent, I am American, so I didn't really come to Doctor Who until much later. So I remember growing up in the US, we had PBS, a public broadcasting system, and of course, most of that was just BBC content. So I grew up on a steady diet of Monty Python and Fawlty Towers and the Two Ronnies and things like that.
It's a good way to be brought up.
Yeah. Absolutely. And every once in a while, they would chuck on a Doctor Who episode. So I have these fleeting memories of seeing the big scarf and the guy with the celery. I really started paying attention when the multicolored jacket came on. And I was like, wow, this is cool. And so I had to try to source it out. Of course, this is back in the late 80s, early 90s, where you had to find tape traders and things like that to actually try to find that. Young kids today, they don't know what they're missing. But yeah, so my background is radio and television as well as comedy and screenwriting. So I've been a script writer and writer for other comedians for years. I've done stand-up myself. Had a podcast, Hot Steaming Pod, but mostly radio work, working for Radio 4RPH here in Brisbane, which is a radio for the print disabled. So we read magazines and books and television on the air, and one of the magazines we do is, of course, the Doctor Who official magazine.
Oh, awesome.
That's the one I'd be reading.
That's
I know,
where we get
I
most
brought
of
it
our
in so
news
that
from.
I could read it, and then another Whovian who works there was like, no, mine. I'm like,
It's like hen's teeth trying to find a copy around Brisbane.
Well,
you got to order it in.
I used to have a great big bag of them, and I gave them to a 10-year-old boy.
Oh.
Because he was mad about Doctor Who, and I'd already read them, and I thought, well, what am I going to do with them? But I wouldn't throw them out. So I had this big bag full of them, and then I gave them away. And now I don't get it, but you can get it online.
You're mad about Doctor Who? Here, read all of these magazines.
Yes.
that's right. Only 50 years worth of magazines to catch up. Yeah, we get it digitally, so we read it on the tablet.
Yeah.
The kids today, they don't know.
They don't know.
Remember getting a magazine? We start off, as we always do, with Doctor Who news. Today we've got 2 little mini-stories. First of all, we've just received word that Rosa, the Season 11 episode penned by Mallory Blackman and Chris Chibnall, and Season 11 in general were awarded Best TV Show at the inaugural Visionary Honours Awards. The awards were created to honour shows that make a positive social impact.
Oh, that's very good. Yeah, normally Doctor Who would have... Well, I'm thinking of the 80s where Mary Whitehead was trying to get it off the air because it was too violent. So it's nice that we're getting nice awards.
And I mean, that ties in with we're going to be talking about Colin Baker today, is that his 2 seasons were marred by accusations that they were too violent.
Yes.
Rosa was also voted the best Season 11 episode by Radio Times viewers back in December 2018.
It's always interesting when not only do we get a new doctor, but a new showrunner.
Yeah.
So it is something that you kind of have to let them get their feel for it. There were shades of genius.
Yep.
Yeah.
There were a few step backs. Overall, I was very happy with it. I like that they decided to change it up and do a New Year's special instead of a Christmas special. It felt like they're like, no, we're doing our own thing.
Yeah.
Jodie is amazing.
Oh, yeah.
Isn't she?
Agreed.
The companions, for the first time, I actually care.
Yeah.
in a long time, probably since Donna Doctor.
Oh, really?
No, that's not true. I loved.
You didn't like Clara? I loved Clara.
No, see, Clara was hit and miss. Like I liked her in the beginning
I
when she
agree.
was interesting, and that whole like she was always involved in all of his lives and all
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. And then they just went, man, we forget all about that.
Yeah, we did kind of forget about that, didn't we? And just moved on. That's Moffat sometimes.
Yeah, that's right.
It still bothers me why in the first episode of Matt Smith he says it's a duck pond, where are all the ducks, and no one ever answers it. I want to know where all the ducks went in the bloody duck
The
pond.
100th anniversary special will answer where the ducks are.
Oh, thank God for that.
Well, it'll
I'll
also-
be dead by then.
It'll also be the episode that Chris Eccleston comes back for.
And Jenny,
Yeah.
the Doctor's daughter, will
Yeah.
come back.
yeah. Oh, she's doing audio plays.
Yeah.
I know, I want to get some of those.
Also, the villain of Resolution was kept a very strict secret until the BBC revealed it in an audio soundbite a week before the episode aired. Now, we know that when the Revive series was first being filmed, they used an anagram codename Torchwood, which went on to become its own show. Does anyone want to have a guess at what the code name for the Dalek in Resolution was?
I'm going to say it's going to be something that's cross nerddom, and it's going to be like Vader or something.
Okay.
Beryl?
Nakia is closer, and
Nice.
it was Kevin.
Ah!
They referred to it as Kevin.
Kevin's a great name.
Yeah.
It's
So-
also a great villain name.
is.
Every Kevin I've ever known, I'm like, that
And
jerk.
Beryls. Never known a good Beryl.
Nikesh Patel, who played Mitch in the episode, stated that his agent sent him the script for the episode. It was a really tense horror thriller, but this buried, ancient, tentacled evil was only referred to by a code name. As someone who's not a diehard Who fan, I thought, that's a step too far, surely? He went on to state, in the read-through, Jodie stuck with the code name, although in hindsight, she did it with a wry smile. Yeah, so when they're
You
doing
imagine that. Hello, Kevin.
Yeah, in the middle of, in the middle of the read-through, they're referring to the enemy as Kevin.
Oh my God, it's an ancient species. It's really dangerous. What is it? Kevin?
Kevin.
Alien psychopath, Kevin.
Kevin.
Kevy.
Kevin.
I'd buy it, though. This is Kevin.
Kevin the
oh,
Dalek.
I'm going to watch him.
Yeah.
I don't trust Kevin.
We used to have Big Kev who used to do the shower
was
tower.
excited.
Terrifying.
Yeah, yeah.
Terrifying.
He scared me.
I still use that. It's one of my terms. I'm Big Kev excited for this. Everyone goes, what?
Oh, God.
Yeah.
He's dead now.
Then they ask you to leave.
R.I.P.
Yeah.
Charlotte Ritchie, who played Lynn, posted on Twitter that the codename Kevin took away a lot of the drama. No disrespect by the name. Yeah, imagine having a read-through where you're not being possessed by a Dalek, but being possessed by a Kevin.
Elijah Wood's character in Sin City had a name very similar. So I think I actually might have been Kevin.
Oh,
Well,
okay.
yeah. I always think of that with Monty Python, where they've got the wizard who can blow everything up.
Yeah,
and
Tim.
they say, what is your name? Some
Tim.
call me Tim.
Maybe that would have been more suiting. Today we will be talking about the Sixth Doctor, portrayed by Colin Baker. The Sixth Doctor first appeared at the end of 1984's The Cave of Androzani, with his first full TV adventure being The Twin Dilemma, first aired March 22nd, 1984. His last TV appearance was in The Ultimate Foe, the last episode of which aired December 6th, 1986. The Sixth Doctor is widely considered by most Whovians to be the worst Doctor of the show's run. This could be due to budget cuts within the BBC, animosity behind the scenes, and dwindling viewership. Much like the Eighth Doctor, the Sixth Doctor has been more prolific in the Big Finish audio plays since his time on the show.
And he is great in the audio plays. He's the Doctor he should have been in the first season. Look, he suffered from a lot of stuff, but there was stuff going on in the background of the BBC, which Scott will know a bit more about.
Oh, yeah.
That was just making it so hard for him.
So before we get started, I have to ask Scott, what version of the Sixth Doctor do you like? Do you like the version that was shown on TV, the version that was planned but never happened because of the stuff behind the scenes, or the audio Doctor?
The interesting thing is that I'm going to give a slightly cop-out statement for the simple reason that they're all supposed to be what he is. If you listen to Colin and believe him, and I do, because especially anything that's surrounding himself and it's true, he's going to talk about it all day. It's just the kind of guy he is.
Yeah.
And the fact is that the Doctor was supposed to start off cowardly and confused,
Yes.
and then get angry, and then have these rash, changes in demeanor because they were trying to point out that regeneration is a gamble on the mind as well. And then eventually he was going to become the hero that he needed to be, which is what he is now in the Big Finish plays. And that was the issue, is that with the turmoil, was that they didn't really get to do all of that exploration that they wanted to do. So to me, there's two versions of him. There's him in the multicolored and him in the blue.
Okay.
Yeah.
Multicolored all the way.
Oh, really?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So you said that they were going to do some different variations with him. But do you think they took too long to do it? I mean, is Doctor Who fandom going to hang around while you strangle your companion and then be a bit cowardly. I mean, don't we want them to sort that out in the first 1 or 2 episodes?
I think that, well, this is during the classic Who stage where one season was one story.
True.
You know?
True.
So I think that they thought, because the previous Doctors had so much time to grow, and you got to remember, these aren't Doctors that had one season out. These were 5, 6, you know, and then Tom Baker's, it was 7 series, and they keep going. I think they thought they had time, but then with Michael Grade's background influence and messing about, I think that's when they started going, oh no, I think they tried to ramp it up, and then I think they also kind of got into this meta, like the Trial of the Time Lord is the first real meta Doctor Who episode season, where they're essentially, the trial is the real trial of the show with the BBC as well as the Doctor's trial. They thought they had a lot of time, and it wasn't until it was too late that they went, oh crap, we don't have a lot
ran
of time.
out of time.
Yeah. So let me admit that the only thing that I've seen with Colin Baker as the Doctor is Trial of a Time Lord, and that's because you, Scott, recommended those episodes, and fuck you for that. Nicchia, what's your history with Colin Baker? Did you watch him when he was on TV?
I did watch him when he was on TV. I had trouble. I didn't like the Twin Dilemma at all. I watched the Trial of the Time Lord a long time ago. I never went back to it until for this episode.
Well, the Twin Dilemma is supposed to be one of the worst episodes of Doctor Who. It's in the list that I could find, ranking the classic episodes.
Gone out of my memory,
it was
except for
at least in the bottom 10, yeah.
But what I did was I read an article, and they said that Colin Baker in the audios is the Doctor he was meant to be. And I always want to give anyone who's playing Doctor Who a go. So I went to the audios, and I love him in the audios, and they did do the right thing. And then I've been to conventions where he's been talking, and he seems really nice and, you know, quite, they all take the piss out of themselves, you know, when they did the 5-ish Doctors.
That was the best.
You know, it was really, really good. Look, he did suffer from a lot of things that he had no control over, which is, you know, writers, the
definitely.
BBC, the audio adventures, they've given him the respect that he needed and the stories that he needed, and he's done really well, and they're really worth listening to.
We were talking before we got on mic about James Bond, and for me, James Bond is a very similar fandom and a similar thing. Everyone has their Bond, they have their stories, but I didn't like Quantum of Solace, the second Daniel Craig one, until someone said, no, go watch Casino Royale, immediately watch Quantum of Solace, and it's just the second act of that movie. And I was like, oh, that's great. Listening to his big finish, then go back and watch the series. You're like, oh, okay. Like, for me, I always thought that the outfit was just, all right, we're going to do something really colorful because Davidson's outfits were so drab, except for the celery, which is still stupid, but whatever. It's almost like
he needed it in the end. He needed it in the end.
All I wanted from that was with one episode where someone's like, why do you have celery? And he just like takes it off and like bonks a Dalek on the head with it. And I'm like, really? Anyway. Or that
you have found our weakness, celery.
Right, or it ends up being his Sonic. It's just a piece of celery.
That's right, because you never had one.
But you go back and you go, okay, so I thought he was just being colorful. But then you go back and you listen to the big finish and it goes back and you go, oh no, it was because he was so confused after the regeneration that he didn't know what he was. He didn't know what was going on. He didn't know what his personality was, and he was trying to stay calm for Perry and all the other companions, but he was as freaked out as anyone because he didn't know what was up and what was down. And I think that beautifully encompasses it. Yeah, it's interesting. You know, a lot of people do say that they hate him and stuff like that. I'm like, how can you hate any Doctor? Like,
no,
sure,
you
have the ones that you like the more. You like some of the series you like more than others, but it's like Star Wars. It's like, you know, James Bond. You love it all, and you just have to, you know, something.
As we were saying, even as a Whovian, you can go, I hated that episode, but you really loved it, but you didn't like it because you still love it. You're never going to turn the television off and walk away if you're a true Whovian.
Oh, I mean, I almost did watching this. To be fair, I can see.
But you weren't brought up on classic Who.
No, that's true. I started watching it when I was a new Who fan, and how come the only episodes I've watched so far have been Sylvester McCoy and Colin Baker, which are, you know, the two worst Doctors so far.
Oh, yeah, you haven't gotten to Davidson yet.
No.
You got a treat.
No, we're saving it, I think, to get me into the classic Who. But
I am going to get you into watch, and it's a sad one, but it's Peter Davidson's last one, The Caves of Androzani. Okay. I love that.
Yeah, so I can see bits of good Doctor there. Yeah, my main complaint about these episodes are there is so much padding. Literally, in one episode, the same scenario happens twice, once after each other, and I'm like, you literally could have cut one of those out. You know, there's padding, just terrible writing. Kind of understand how people would like the Doctor Doctor. And I understand that the point was to make a Doctor that people didn't like and see him turn into a Doctor that people did like.
Which they did with Capaldi, essentially.
Yeah, essentially.
they did.
But Capaldi, they had the writers behind it. They had, the
BBC behind it.
even with all of that money and the writers and everything, I still hate Capaldi when he first started,
I did too.
But there's some great episodes there.
I eventually loved him, but the first few, I thought, oh, God, this is going to be a tough season to
But
get
Colin
through.
Baker suffers from, not having enough money. And
That's what it really comes down to, is the fact the background fighting. Like, if you go back and you watch the Davidson era, you think these ones were hokey. Like, there were so many times where they would touch a steel wall, quote unquote, and the whole thing wobbled. Like, there's a couple episodes where things fall off. And
Although I always imagine things do fall off the actual TARDIS.
And I think that's when the writers for the New Who took over. I think they've encompassed that because they loved, that was the things that they loved as kids, because that was when geekdom, really started coming into its own. And they start doing things like that, like the round things and all those. So they start bringing all that back. Back then, they weren't. They were trying to hide. They were embarrassed by it. And Trial of the Time Lord actually came out because one, yes, the show was on trial with the BBC. But two, they had no money, no special effects budget, and they were like, "What do we do?" It's like, well, one room. Bunch of people, lots of extras.
But that's fine.
Lots
That
of
can
corridors.
work. That can work. And obviously there was stuff behind the scenes where the first writer unfortunately passed away after he had written most of the episodes, and they brought in, there were multiple different writers coming in.
Was that Robert Holmes? Robert Holmes wrote the first one.
Yes, Robert Holmes, and then he passed away from
See, he wrote some of
complications.
my favourites, The Ark in Space and Caves of Androzani.
Well, The Mysterious Foe, the last two episodes,
Yeah.
he wrote the first pass, then they got somebody else to come in and
Pip
write.
and Jane Baker, I think, wrote
No, there was
second
another guy, Seward, who did another pass, and then he wanted to end it on a cliffhanger, and BBC didn't like that, so then he removed his script. So then they got the two people you just mentioned to come in and finish. So at least 3 different people were writing those episodes.
There's so much stuff in Trial of the Time Lord that is just ripe for the picking from New Who, like the Valyard.
Oh, yeah,
which is
the
something they
idea of the
haven't done.
Valyard is fantastic.
See, I hate the Valyard.
Like his plan or the Valyard as a
The
person?
Valyard as a character.
Oh, really? I love it. I think it's fantastic.
He annoys the crap out of me. The Master annoys the crap out of me. The New Who.
Oh, the Master and when the Master appeared in the final episode of Trial of a Time Lord, I was like, what is going on?
He's so hokey.
Yeah.
In the
so many of the
old
classic
ones.
stuff is so hokey.
I'm like, is he playing the Master from The Curse of Fatal Death? You know? I expected him to go, I'm in the Matrix with my Dalek bumps.
I love that so much. That's still one of my all-time favorite Doctor Who episodes, and it's not even officially canon,
that's
and I
right.
find that it's hard to believe. It needs to go back, and someone needs to make that canon.
Jonathan Pryce was so funny as the Master.
Yeah, but just how many good Doctors were in that?
Yeah.
Richard
Oh,
D.
yeah.
Grant, Hugh Grant.
No.
Joanna
Joanna
Lumley.
Joanna
Lumley,
Lumley,
yeah.
yeah.
Oh, fantastic.
I always wanted to get my hands on one of these. Oh, it's got 3 seats.
Yeah, I love that.
What is it about the Sixth Doctor that you like so much? Let's go into that.
I think-
What traits?
I think ideally it's that he gets so much hate. I think that's.
You like to be a contrarian?
You like the underdog.
I'm always attracted to the underdog. So I say when people go name your favorite 2 Doctors, immediately it's Colin Baker or Paul McGann, because if you look at them the way they wanted you to see them, they're so brilliant and there's so many layers. Unfortunately, because of the movie didn't go into a new series and Michael Grade, who hated Colin Baker, kicked him out, they didn't get to explore those. They have in the Big Finish, obviously, and some of Paul McGann's Big Finish ones are the greatest Doctor Who stories ever. It doesn't matter who
I'm
Doctor
going to
it
have to
is.
listen to these
They
audios.
are amazing.
Big shout out to Big Finish
yes, they're
Productions.
following us on Instagram.
Yeah, following us on Instagram. Yeah,
Yay.
fantastic
I
work,
have
guys.
scripts for you.
Ooh. Yay.
I know one of the things that I do to advise us to any writer who's out there, if you write things that you love, even if you know they're not going to go anywhere. So I've written about 9 Doctor Who movies.
Really?
I have my own trilogy of James Bond movies. And I also have one script that I love so much it's actually, the title of it is The Ultimate Crossover, This Movie Will Never Be Made. Characters in this are James Bond, Batman, and the Doctor.
Oh, my
wow.
goodness.
In that movie, is it revealed that James Bond is a Time Lord? Because that's my favourite fan theory about James Bond, is that he's a Time Lord.
I actually go into the other fan theory on James Bond, is that Bond is actually a code name.
Oh,
It's
right.
not-
Okay. And it gets
Yeah.
given to different people.
That's right. But him and Batman hate each other because they're essentially the same person.
True.
And one's rich and yeah.
The only thing that separates them is the rule, the no killing rule.
Yeah.
So they'd kill each other otherwise.
Well, Batman wouldn't be able to kill James Bond, but James Bond would be able to kill Batman.
But of course, no one can kill Batman.
Yes. There was a panel at one of the conventions where they worked out that Batman would only be able to operate for about 2 years before all of the cartilage in his body would be destroyed, and he wouldn't be able to like get up and walk around.
to bring it back, there's a very popular fan comic where Batman is revealed to be a Time Lord.
There you go.
The Joker shoots him in the chest, and as he's dying, he regenerates, and Joker's like, wait, what? And he goes, yeah, didn't any of this ever, how do I survive all the damage? How do I do all this? Not only that, but utility belt, bigger on the inside.
Oh my God, I love this so much. I have no affinity for James Bond, so I'm sorry.
That's all right. People are allowed to be wrong.
Oh, yeah.
I never got into James Bond.
Yeah, all those different fandoms, but yeah, always write them in Big Finish. Yeah, the great thing about Big Finish, and even Colin to an extent, is Colin's on Twitter. He's very accessible. I've had about 5 or 6 conversations with him on Twitter, just about random things.
Yeah,
and you message him, and he'll go right back to you.
Guess who we're messaging for this episode?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's get onto Twitter right now.
Yeah, Paul McGann.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
That's who we'll be messaging.
Peter Davidson. No, he's gone off it. He's gone off Twitter because he got so much hate when he suggested that boys had lost their
role model.
Oh.
Well, you're allowed to suggest that.
I mean, you're allowed to have opinions, but you have to cop the backlash if you're going to make a sweeping statement.
Yeah, but at the same time, there's a lot of
backlash.
people on Twitter who just their go-to thing is death threats.
Well, this is coming from experience as well. I've had them as well for little comedy shows that I've had. My favorite, and I actually have printed it off. It's in a frame in my office, and it actually said from a joke that I did on a late night show when I was hosting. It says, "I hope your kids die of cancer."
Oh Jesus!
And so I printed it all, and I have it framed because that is. And I'm writing a book with a psychologist friend of mine about toxic masculinity and toxic nerddom because
it does get quite
toxic. You're going to get so much backlash for that.
Yeah.
Bring it on.
You are going to be so out of the franchise.
I'm going to share you guys a very subtle tip. I don't give a shit. So people go, I hate you. And I go, thanks for the feedback.
Well, I was at an improv show a couple of weeks ago, and when the male host started talking, someone in the audience shouted out mansplaining. And then the first suggestion that they asked for the night was Gillette. And they said, can we have another suggestion, please?
Oh, no.
So that was a heated night.
It's a really tenuous time, even to be doing stand-up comedy, that you second guess every joke you write and think, can I do this? Can I not?
But it's interesting to note that Colin Baker, who has received so much hate throughout the years as the worst Doctor, is, like you said, such a lovely person. He's so into the series, and
he loves the fans.
He could have easily have said, "I'm never doing Doctor Who again." I mean, when they kicked him off the show, he did say, "I'm not doing your regeneration story," so they had to get Sylvester McCoy in a wig. But he could have easily have said, "I'm not doing it again because you all treated me like shit." He's gone the opposite way and gone, "Well, there are people who like me. I'm going to do this stuff."
And that is what you can take away from it. And anyone who's online and anything like that can take of it is that you don't have to give trolls and people who hate power. It's very easy to just go, okay.
Yeah.
And that actually usually upsets them more than any kind of witty comeback.
Yeah.
It's just go, whatever. I don't care about you and your life. And it's usually because they're angry or mad or they're not in the place they want to be. So you just kind of go, okay. Don't give it back.
It is usually those. Although I find that the hardest one, not the trolls, is when you have your kids and they say to you, I hate you. And you look at your kids and you go, that's unfortunate because I'm your mother for life.
And not only that, but I had many times to throw you off a balcony when you were little. And I didn't. So you should be thankful.
Well, these days they can say, I hate you, Mum. And then you can turn around and be like, so does everyone on Twitter.
Yeah, that's right. You're not alone.
As I always say to hecklers or anything like that, nothing you ever say will ever be worse than what I say to myself.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Pointed out you're a contrarian. Is there any aspects of the Doctor that you like? He's very arrogant, sort of like...
I think it's fear. He has that confident bring on, change, my dear, not a moment too soon.
Not a moment too soon.
And you're just like, ooh, I like that. That's kind of good. That's a good line. And then, of course, he was the only Doctor who had his first story technically part of the season of the previous Doctor.
Yeah.
He was also the only Doctor that was billed before in his debut, the current Doctor. And then the first episode of his own series, he doesn't know what is going on. He's so confused. He's angry. He's sad. He's going all over the show. And that's what I was attracted to him. Like coming after Pete Davidson, where he was just so confident and so cocksure of everything he did.
But he was
and
also
he wanted
so-
to bludgeon him with the cricket bat.
Oh, really? See, I loved him because he was so even. I loved Tegan and him. I love that Tegan just took no shit from him.
Oh, for
You know,
sure.
she'd call him out on any sort of bullshit.
The biggest issue I have, and again, love him, love all Doctor, but is that, okay, we got Peter Davison, and he's really good at the dramatic pull-in.
Oh, yeah.
So every time he comes to a realization, we're going to do this close-up
Yeah.
dramatic pull-in of his face so as he realizes what's going on. But they did it so often that it got to the point like, the butter has gone soft, you know,
Yeah.
and you're just like, it loses all.
Wow, I have
Got a
that to
bit
look forward to.
hokey.
Fantastic. It's interesting that there is that point of the doctors that are referred to as the worst, and that's my air quotes there. Obviously, everyone's got an opinion, you know, based on the doctors,
Yeah.
but you've got Colin Baker still trying to find his way after regeneration. You've got Paul McGann, who for most of that movie was confused and trying to get himself together. And that's the main complaint that people have had about
And
Jodie
Jesus.
Whittaker. But people's main complaint about Jodie Whittaker is, she's not confident, she doesn't
She's not
know
the
who she
doctor
are.
yet.
And like I said, it only took until the later half of the series where you realise she's a doctor who relies on her friends. Her companions are as valuable as she is compared to Moffat's characters who were...
Gods, lonely
the
gods.
doctor was gods and then the companions were followers. There's that complaint again of, she doesn't know who she is as a doctor. So the fandom really hates when they try something different and they try like, maybe the doctor's a little bit confused, and the fandom goes, no, the doctor must always know who they are.
Doctor is omnipotent.
Yes.
But the thing is that as a Whovian, change is inevitable.
Oh, yeah,
but
definitely.
the most terrifying thing. And you're so worried that the new person is going to ruin it and then the BBC is going to
Yeah.
cut it and it's never going to be on. And I think some of them take it to an extreme.
One of my other fandoms is so helps in all of this. I have been a lifelong WWE fan, professional wrestling. And professional wrestling is one of those things where you can have a decade of bad characters and horrible storytelling and still be invested, because it is one of those types of entertainment that I've had the privilege of being on all sides of it, because I did wrestle for 20-something years and I've been in the writing room of that, and it is extreme theater, and it is...
See, I always call it soap opera for men.
It's exactly.
It is.
And we always used to say the same thing. And I remember having a very public argument with another comedian on ABC Radio where he's going, it's all fake. I'm like, do you think Jon Snow is actually slaying Diana?
Yeah, imagine if Jon Snow just had like plot points that he had to hit, and they're like, off you go, Jon, do the whole episode. Like,
Right.
is there going to be CG? Nah, just go for it.
Yeah.
We're going to throw some doves at you.
Yeah,
was crow ravens. No, doves, whatever.
we're gonna need a little blood in this one.
Yeah.
So you're gonna get special effects. No, here's a razor blade. Cut yourself
Yeah,
open.
yeah. And
Wherever you like.
the White Walkers are all armed with chairs. All right, go.
Yeah, but with wrestling, you get characters, and there's a great YouTube movie that was made called Wrestling Isn't Wrestling, where he says you follow one character, and you can follow this person for 20 years, and you see the evolution of their character and the change.
Yeah.
So what professional wrestling has taught me about all fandoms, and this goes into Star Wars and James Bond, is that it's a journey.
That's true.
Once you're in, hang on. Sometimes they're going to get it right, sometimes they're not. They say in Wrestling Isn't Wrestling, when it's bad, it's terrible, but when it's good, it's so good.
And look, but Doctor Who's like that. When it's good,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And when it's bad, it's bad.
But so many people want to be the first person to say, this is it, all done, they've ruined
Yeah.
it. And it's like, nah, man, just hang on.
Oh no, I'm never going anywhere. But
Yeah.
but I will at times go, I'm nervous about where they're headed.
I will say the main difference is that wrestling has a lot of money behind it.
Yes.
And the BBC does not put a lot of money. Surprisingly, as we've said multiple times, it's
Into Doctor Who.
surprising how little money they put into the show, you know.
When you get into the merchandising and all that
Yeah.
kind of stuff and how much revenue is in, how much they put in, it's chalk and cheese. But it can be interesting to see how these people go. And one of the things a friend of mine was saying who hates Jodie Whittaker as a doctor, it's ruining.
really?
And I just said, but you've got to understand, this is a doctor who's unstable, and the only stable thing in her life is her friends. That's what keeps her grounded. And he's
Yeah.
like, oh,
Yeah.
that actually makes sense now.
Yeah.
And then he went back and watched the whole series. No, I'm on board again. I'm
Yeah.
like, you just have to take yourself out of it. And whatever little patch you got to put on, it's like a video game. You got to download the patches occasionally and find the thing
And
that
stop
you can
comparing
hook in.
it to the previous doctors. You know, it's a complete antithesis of Peter Capaldi's God Doctor, you know.
Yeah, it was interesting because watching the trial of a Time Lord again, back to Colin Baker, the first episode, those opening sequences, I thought they were really good.
Yeah.
Considering the era that it's in, the opening when they had the spaceship and
Oh,
the
the
TARDIS
CGI?
going through,
Yeah,
the CGI
yeah.
was really good.
Model work.
Yeah, but then compare that to the last episode where the MS Paint blue sparks are
Yeah.
shooting out of the TV, and I was like, "Is this really
Yeah.
happening? Is this a fan? Like, this is
No,
the BBC actual special effects here."
But
They have no
BBC
money.
1986.
Yeah.
And like another fandom of mine, which is interesting when we get into the godlike heritage, is Superman is a huge love of mine. That people always say he's a god and everything. I showed my son Christopher Reeves, Superman, and he's like, "That's terrible. Like,
Yeah.
he doesn't look on fine." I said, "Yeah, but you got to remember, back then this was the bee's knees. Like
Yeah.
this,
Yeah.
the tagline of the movie was, 'You will believe a man can fly.'"
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when people saw that, they're like, "What?"
And
now
Christopher
you look
Reeve
at
used
it.
to say people would come up to him and be like, "How did you do that? That was amazing!" Like, yeah.
Essentially,
And you-
he had a cable in his crotch the
Yes.
entire time. It's
Very
so uncomfortable.
uncomfortable.
You have to take it and put it back in the era. I mean, yeah, it's the special effects but back then that was cutting edge. for what they were doing.
I was really impressed by the openings. Like, I hate what happened to Perry. I always thought Perry was
That's
a great companion,
bad, yeah.
and she was completely underused.
Well, I mean, that's what I'm talking about. It's like, so they have the evil king, alien, whatever it is.
Brian
They-
Blessed.
Oh my God, Brian Blessed in that episode.
Yeah.
That's you should have told me to watch that episode and
Yeah.
been like, just focus on Brian Blessed.
Yeah.
And I'd be
the
like,
best.
oh, God damn, he was good. But they take the brain out of that slug thing and then put it into
Oh.
another slug. And then one episode later, they're taking it out of that slug and putting it into Perry. And I was
Yeah.
like, why
With
did
the
we?
worst bald cap ever. Now, come on, that was the one time when I'm just like, I'm on board with you in the complaints about the special effects. It's like, I've seen better bald caps from a discount store
Yeah.
for Halloween than they
Yeah.
had on her.
And having grown up in the 90s, with things with like Jurassic Park and stuff, so the special effects were, when you've got money behind them. But I love Red Dwarf, and Red Dwarf is very dodgy special effects and very similar sort of thing. So, I'm trying to give it to this Trial of a Time Lord, but it is so padded and so much stuff that shouldn't be in there. And it's like you're writing the episodes. No one's forcing you to say you have to have this same situation happen twice. You just go, oh, we just have something else to fill. Like, put in another story or something.
I know, in
or-
the first one, they just spend most of their time getting captured, recaptured, recaptured.
That was the other, yeah,
in
that's
the worst
another thing.
prison ever.
Oh.
I'm pretty sure I could have got out of that jail, but anyway.
In the first one, they get captured, they escape, they find the doctor, they get recaptured, they escape again. I was like, what is going on?
It was a beautiful hodgepodge of such horrible incidences. The BBC not giving them any money,
Yeah.
writers dying or
Yeah.
leaving
Yeah.
because they couldn't be afforded
And
anymore.
Robert Holmes is such a good writer.
And then directors coming and going because they couldn't. They were essentially going to like local film schools, going, "Do you have anyone who's never done anything that we can pay 1 shilling and
Yeah.
maybe they'll direct something?" All of that comes into it, and
Do
then
they have their own bald cap? Because they're in if they do.
They're the director and head of props.
Yeah, that's right. We've got some bubble wrap and some tape. We've got the monster of the week.
So talking about the behind the scenes, let's talk about a name that we've mentioned a couple of times in this episode. Michael Grade was the controller of BBC One from 1984 to 1988 and the man responsible for the 18th month hiatus between seasons 22 and 23.
Double boot.
The firing of Colin Baker, and eventually the cancellation of Doctor Who. It should be pointed out that at one point Grade was dating Liza Goddard, the ex-wife of Colin Baker, although I'm not entirely sure when,
Ooh.
because she was married throughout most of the 80s. So
But she obviously had some nasty things to say about Colin.
There was some personal animosity between the two
Yeah.
of them. And that translates into it. But this will also give you an idea about Grade. Like, he was the man who canceled Dallas from being aired in the UK. Now, Dallas was a huge show.
Why?
Didn't like it.
Yeah.
But he
Yeah.
also
God.
almost canceled Blackadder because he said
Yes.
it wasn't funny and Atkinson wasn't a star.
Oh my God! Well,
Yeah.
then
So
he had
this is the
no idea.
kind of
this was
person we're
season
talking
one of
about.
Blackadder. After season one of Blackadder, he almost cancelled it. Yeah, it was crazy.
It's not their best season, but
No.
it's still funny.
No.
And so this is the kind of grade of person, like, he obviously can't see further than his nose,
He was a dictator.
with an
Yeah.
emphasis on the first part.
The
Yeah.
main theory why they cancelled Doctor Who was because, they must have been trying to save money. Well, the same year that they cancelled Doctor Who, they found out that Michael Grade had spent £500,000 to buy the rights to an American TV show, which could have paid for, at that time, 2 seasons of Doctor Who.
Yeah, and don't
know?
you want to make, you're the BBC, don't you want to make UK content? I mean, that's what we want the ABC to do?
Well, he was executive producer on the US show because he had worked on it before he moved to BBC.
Right.
He was the television version of Inciting Trade.
Oh. So he really is the master, isn't he? He's twiddling his mustache in the corner.
So in 2002, he appeared on Room 101, which is a TV show where people put in 3 things that they hate. Room 101 is a torture room from 1984. It was then hosted by Paul Merton. The first thing he put into the room was Doctor Who. Gray talked about how he hated Doctor Who, that he wasn't a fan of science fiction in general, and that the show looked terrible and dodgy, despite him being in a position to be able to give the show more resources. Merton points out that when the show was cancelled, it was getting higher ratings than Match of the Day and talk show Wogan, though Grade is unimpressed, insulting Doctor Who fans and laughing his way through the segment.
Right. Right, what's his address?
Yeah. If you don't...
He's still around, too.
Oh,
Yeah.
really?
He
If you
is.
don't
He's
like him,
75 years old. I reckon I can take him.
You should watch that clip, and it is insulting to Doctor Who fans. It is so
Wow.
And he's
crazy.
also... He
Why would
is
he
so...
do that as
Yeah.
the controller of the BBC?
Because he had the power. He could just do it.
Yeah.
You said it, dictator.
Dictator.
He
Yeah.
thought that he could tell people what they wanted, and they would go, "Oh, okay." But the fact is that
Oh, I don't
people have a
want
mind of their
Doctor.
own. But the thing is you also watch the interviews with Colin at that time, and so dignified. Like he was fighting so hard,
Oh, yeah.
and you could tell he just wanted to go, "This mother," but he wouldn't. He never went low. He stayed classy the whole time,
And I think you and I were saying that, he
Yeah.
really could have said, that's it. He could have done a Chris Eccleston and said, that's it.
Yeah.
I'm never having
Yeah.
anything
Yeah.
to do with Doctor Who again. But he's not. He's so generous with his time.
Well, the
I've
week
seen him
after
at
he was,
conventions. He's
the week
lovely.
after he got kicked off the show is when he took over for John Pertwee on the Doctor Who stage show to come back for the Children in Need special, the Dimension.
Dimensions in Time,
the
which
one.
was terrible.
Which what happened to his hair
I-
between the last episode? He must have had all the budget must have gone into a wig
Yeah.
for him during his last few seasons because all of a sudden he has nothing in
Yeah.
that one, and you're like, whoa, what? What's going on?
What happened?
And then he was in the first Big Finish audio in 1999. So,
Was he the first?
well, there were 3 doctors in that. I can't remember who the other 2 were, but he was one of the 3.
Yeah, I think the other one, it was Tom, and I believe it was a person doing impersonation of Troughton.
And apparently the other doctors would make fun of Colin Baker because Patrick Troughton, one interview that he was giving for US TV, he refers to Colin Baker as Miss Piggy 3 times
what?
because he's apparently considered the fat doctor. And there's an episode in Trial of a Time Lord where Mel is trying to get him in shape.
In shape.
And
yeah.
I'm like, oh, Jesus, if he's fat, I'm fucked.
But then you also go to the 2 Doctor episode with Troughton and Colin Baker, and he's running rings around Troughton. I mean, granted, he was an old man at that stage, but it was almost an embarrassment to see. Like, you could even, there was a couple times where Troughton looked at him like, you son of a bitch. Like,
That is such a weird episode. I liked it, but that they turn into the troll people or Troughton. It's such a weird episode. But I really love to see the 2 of them together.
From Trial of a Time Lord, there's that super interesting concept of let's meet the Doctor's next companion when they've already known each other for a while. Like, I didn't know that happened, and I was like, whoa, what's going on? Is there an episode I missed?
No.
And I was like, that is such an interesting concept. And apparently they were going to get to that episode where they meet in the series after, but obviously, they kicked Colin Baker out. Again, Michael Grade basically said you could have the show back for
they
another
did get
series.
into that in the
Why
Big
did
Finish.
they get rid of Perry? I've never understood that because I
She
didn't
was unhappy.
like Mel.
Supposedly, she was very unhappy with the way the series was being treated.
yeah.
It was again another casualty of the behind the scenes,
Yeah.
and also the writers felt that they needed to do something dramatic because essentially they were being told they were going every week. They were getting the numbers faxed to them of the
Jesus,
ratings,
no.
and supposedly that was coming down to we need to do something huge to get the numbers up. Best thing you can do is kill a character. You can't kill the Doctor.
Yeah.
So kill the companion.
And
Well,
I
but
think
according to
Mel was a big celebrity when she was a kid or something. Was she
Yeah.
the girl who played Mel? Bonnie Longford?
Langford, yep.
Langford. I
Yeah,
did
apparently she
not
won a
like-
talent show when she was younger, and
Yeah.
she'd been on Broadway and stuff like that.
I didn't like her as a companion.
No, neither
ever.
did I.
I could not take
No.
to her.
There's also rumours that apparently they wanted to kill Perry because they wanted that to be the impetus for the Doctor realising, to become a better person, better Doctor. There's various reasons,
But
but
they were fighting a losing battle. If
Oh,
that
definitely.
guy hated, if Michael, the
Grade,
BBC controller, hated Doctor Who, they could have pulled something magnificent out of their asses and he still would have gone, yeah, no.
What I love about Colin as well is that sometimes I think when you can actually see the point and when the actor has decided enough is enough. Eccleston is one of those ones I'm always on the bubble with. Some of the episodes with him were brilliant. Some of them were trash. But I think you can see the point where he's just like, I'm out of here. I don't care anymore.
Really? I don't know if I
don't know.
I think you can see it with Tom Baker when he was kind of like, I've had enough, I'm tired.
Legopoulos, you can tell he's over it by then.
Even Pete Davidson, I think, in his last one, you can sit there and you can see him go, oh, thank Christ.
Do you know, I have to tell you, he tells a story that when he regenerates, and he said people are ringing him going, oh my God, you know, it's so sad, blah, blah. He said, no. He said, nobody's watching me because all you can see is Perry's cleavage, which is true. All you can see is her cleavage leaning over him going, doctor, doctor. People are going, I don't care what's happened to the doctor. There's cleavage.
As long as those don't regenerate.
Well, it's interesting when they got an Australian companion, they got someone, you know, an Australian actor. When they got someone who's from America, they just got a woman from the UK doing an American accent.
Did they know at first? Did she pretend to be? Because I thought there was a little bit of an exchange between her and Colin, and she said, should I tell them I'm not really from the US? And he said, I think they know.
There was a lot of when they got the Australian companion from Brisbane.
Yeah.
I was just like, heck yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think she fought against it, but they made her very, very Australian, didn't they? I mean, very.
True.
Too Australian. Yeah.
I'll get this dialect with my boomerang.
I don't think she was happy with that.
Now, typing in Colin Baker best moments on YouTube produces such videos as Davros the Great Healer, The Sixth Doctor is Rude, The Regeneration into the Sixth Doctor, The Sixth Doctor strangling Perry, and Colin Baker's best bits on I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here.
He actually won it, didn't he?
And that was actually a series my wife worked on.
Oh, really?
Wow.
So she had some interesting stories. I'm like, please get me his autograph. I'm not allowed on set, but I want to.
But typing in the same
Just
for...
a lock of his hair.
What was left?
The typing in the same for other doctors obviously produces such videos as iconic quotes and humorous moments of that doctor, best doctor moments, and there's even a handful of videos for the War Doctor. But it's interesting that there's none for the Sixth Doctor.
He suffers from the reputation. A lot of people haven't gone into the audios because they don't know they exist or they're not big enough.
Which is interesting because there's 82 of them.
I think only Paul McGann has recorded more audio plays than he has.
Yeah, and if you go into the audios, there's heaps of great, fabulous, moments. As I said, Colin Baker was in an episode of Doctor Who with Tom Baker, and he was a very arrogant sergeant or something.
Yeah, he was Maxwell.
That's it, Maxwell. They obviously had their eye on him for a little while. So why did they bring him in if they were going to treat him so badly? And
Well, I think they liked him. I think it was the BBC that didn't.
Yeah.
See, now the BBC is very kind of hands-offish on the whole thing. It's like, just keep bringing us that sweet, sweet money, and we'll just leave you alone.
Just don't ask for more money.
I also love the fact that in Capaldi's series, Moffat went back to those series and just went, well, we've got an actor who's already been in the show as a different character.
Yeah.
How do we bring this in? And they were supposedly, Colin says, and again, Colin says a lot of things,
Yeah.
they were going to reference Maxwell, that he got his face from Maxwell because of their interaction. They actually used that in Capaldi when he gets his face from the Pompeii. Obviously, the people in charge now love Classic Who, and they do bring things back in, and people are like, oh, that's interesting. It's like, you don't even know, dude.
That's from Classic Who. In defense of Colin, having been to a couple of conventions where he's talking, I have just nothing but love for him. And he's so generous with the fans.
Oh, he seems wonderfully
and he's
amazing.
really nice. I wish that he hadn't had this awful start to Doctor Who, you know. But he did, and it's in the
And it's interesting
in the
to note that, I mean, he wasn't the first classic Doctor who said we should have a female Doctor. Patrick Troughton said it could be anyone, but he
In Tom Baker's series, they actually alluded to the fact that he was.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And so Pertwee as well, because they said, oh, you're a dandy. He goes, well, this isn't the first time I've been conscious about my fashion choices. Something like that.
Something like that, isn't
And
it?
everyone was like, hey, what?
But he's been the most vocal. They asked him in 2014 about the possibility of female Doctor, and he stated it should happen, but he thought that it probably wouldn't happen in his lifetime. He expressed that as an alien, the Doctor could identify as any number of sexes, including non-binary or intersex. When Jodie Whittaker was announced as the 13th Doctor, Colin Baker tweeted, well, I never. The BBC really did do the right thing and let the Doctor be in touch with his feminine side. As the father of daughters, result.
Well, he has lots of daughters.
He has 4 daughters. Yeah, 4 daughters with
And
his
supposedly
his
he
wife.
sent Jodie like a Sonic.
Oh, really?
And it was like, it's yours now. And I
what
was
a
just like,
sweetheart.
I want to squish him. Like, because he looks so different now than he did when he was a doctor. I'd love him to be like a Wilford in one of the seasons of Jodie. Just have him in as like a, the grandpa character who comes in for a little while. And maybe it could be one of Graham's friends or something like that. I would love that so
fellow
much.
bus driver.
Yeah.
Graham, do you remember how you're a bus driver? Yeah, I know, mate.
And then maybe like at the end of it, like a Tom Baker from the 50th, it could be like I actually know everything about you because I am you. And they get like a little wink and everyone's like, what? That would be great. But my biggest issue with Doctor Who has always been from start to finish is why haven't we had a good video game?
Oh, definitely.
We've always talked
Colin
about
Baker
that.
is the classic Doctor who's been in the most video games before BBC started pumping out the dreck that was all of the Matt Smith video games. Oh my God, they were terrible.
Oh, so terrible. The best video game is the Lego Dimensions level.
Yes.
And like I even, because I have friends who work in video games, and I actually mapped out the game for them, what a Doctor Who game, and I'm like, take Resident Evil, put the Doctor in.
Yeah.
I said every time you die, you regenerate into one of the.
That's what happens in Lego Dimensions. Every time you die, you regenerate into the next Doctor.
Oh,
and every time
really?
you go into the TARDIS, it's their TARDIS.
Yeah, so
And the
good.
music changes as well. Like only like when you're doing an adventure thing, it's usually the Doctor Who themes, and it's always their theme. It's their era's theme that they're playing. But when you turn into Matt Smith, it turns into I'm the Doctor. Then. Dun, 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 dun. But yeah, so I said we should have a game where they regenerate every time you die. You can find new life cycles, so you can keep regenerating. And once it's gone through the 13, you essentially it just randomly gives you a different face, and you get to pick the clothes. Like create a Doctor.
Oh, that
that
would be
would be
amazing.
fun.
And I'm like, this game should be amazing. It's licensed to print money. Let's do that. I'm happy to give it to for free. As long as I get a free copy.
My idea has always been like an RPG, so I would love an RPG where you can't just be the Doctor, you could be anybody. So you could be Captain Jack, you could be a companion, you could
I want to be River Song.
You could be a Dalek, you could be anything, and basically what you would do is, depending on which character you were, determines how you interact with the enemies. So obviously if you're a Dalek, it's just straight combat. You're shooting them, they die. But if you're the Doctor, you're using your sonic, you're using intelligence against them, and that basically denotes that you've outsmarted them instead of killing them.
You're
know?
using books.
Yeah, if you're Captain Jack, then maybe you're seducing them, I think
Seducing him or shooting him in the face.
yeah, exactly.
But there could
That's
be
the same thing. There should be a good
There needs to be one really good Doctor Who game. And again, Resident Evil, where it's puzzle solving, even Tomb Raider to an extent, where you're solving puzzles and doing all stuff, perfect for them. I mean, come on, Superman even got one good game based off a crap movie, but it's a good game, Superman Returns. So.
Colin Baker appeared in the second Doctor Who video game ever produced, which was basically produced for the BBC Computer Literacy Project for their BBC Micro. So it was a computer that the BBC had bought the rights to and basically produced their own games, but they were all educational games.
Okay.
It was basically just a platformer that was a sequel to So it started off as a sequel to a game called Castle Quest, and then halfway through production they went, no, it's going to be a Doctor Who game now.
Let's reskin it, rename it.
Yeah, exactly.
Done.
No, well, I would think that this is one thing they would get right, because imagine the money that would come in from a game that was actually fun to play. Not that I'm a computer game person, but even I'd have a go at a Doctor Who game that was good.
It's got to have been pitched. I just don't know why they don't pull the trigger on it.
Money, it's got to be money. Do you remember that MMO online game that they had?
Yeah, it was
for a while.
lasted for what, month?
Yeah, it was terrible. I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. So I went and created a character, and it was basically just a mobile game where they just constantly wanted you to buy more stuff. It was terrible.
But they never had the best history when it comes to their merchandise. It's been a real stop-start, and it's not until they find something that usually works, which is whoever does their current line of action figures, but even they're pretty dodgy.
They're not as good as they could be, are they?
They don't produce high-quality replicas. It's usually other companies that go to the BBC and go, can you give us the license to produce this $200 sonic screwdriver? And then the BBC is always surprised when people are buying it, because they're like, we can produce a sonic screwdriver for $30 and people will buy it in droves, so why would we bother with anything that's, nicer?
Well, if you want to buy the 13th Doctor's ear cuff, a proper one, it's about £300 to buy it, and it's handmade, each one individually made by Alex Kemp, I think. Absolutely. Oh, he could have made the shoes. I don't know. I've looked at all of it. Yeah, and they're all sold out. They're making new ones.
I was excited because the other day I was in the shop and I saw the 13th Doctor screwdriver that you could buy, But there's two versions. There's essentially the one that looks like a gray turd with a light on
Yeah,
it, and
yeah.
then there's the one that looks like it's from the show, and it's about a $400 difference.
Yeah.
Because I have all of the cheaper Sonic
Yeah.
screws.
Yeah.
I have all of them, even the War Doctors one, and they're great, except the
They do-
David Tennant one tends to fall apart.
Yeah, my David Tennant
yeah,
one, I
yeah.
can't keep it together.
Do you have the David Tennant one where they, for some reason, tried to make it into a pen and
Yes.
it's got the different things on the bottom?
And
yeah.
a UV
And
light
you
on it.
lose all of them.
Oh,
yeah.
And now you've just got,
I
I've got
ended
the
up
same.
I ended up gluing in one of them just
Oh,
as
yeah,
super
yeah.
glue
It's
so
just
it
to
wouldn't
keep
fall
it,
apart.
yeah.
My Matt Smith one doesn't actually
Open.
It's permanently
Yeah.
extended. It won't lock back into place.
Ah,
no.
okay.
Well, my Riversong one, bits fell off it, so I'll have to get another one day.
But they're not good for daily use, as they
No,
say.
no, this is what I found out, but they do work on everything except wood.
And everything else because they're not a real sonic screwdriver.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
I don't know what
You really kind of ruined it for me, didn't you?
Except for that one that's a remote control. I
Yeah.
love
Oh,
that
yeah,
one.
yeah. The swishing one, yeah.
Yeah, it's
They've got a Harry
one of
Potter
those.
themed one of those
there's
as well.
a Matt Smith era.
It's a universal,
It's a universal
the
remote.
remote,
yeah.
I've seen it.
Is that the one where you can make swishing movements and
I
it
think
does
so,
stuff?
but
Yeah.
because it's only got the one button.
I would absolutely love to have a 13th Doctor ear cuff, but I ain't not paying £300
Yeah, yeah,
to get
exactly.
one. The one I did get was $22 and fell apart when I tried to put it on. So there you go.
I have probably all of the Colin Baker merchandise that there is because there wasn't that much.
No.
There's like 2 figures, a bunch of the little Lego knockoff, and I have a cup of his head, which is impossible to drink from. When because I used to have every week on my TV show. I used
drinking from the skull is very much something of a tribal thing.
Absolutely, and it's
The
a
Aztecs.
religious experiment.
Yeah.
Every week when I was doing my TV show, I used a different coffee cup, and then I brought on the Colin Baker one week, and I forgot that it's really not designed to drink out of because
Yeah.
the shoulders are hollow.
Oh.
So when you go to drink, an air pocket forms.
Oh, no.
no.
So when you put your cup down and put it on the desk, the air pocket pushes all the liquid up and it just shoots out all over your face.
Nobody QA tested that.
Yeah, there was
No.
no design thought put into that. Was
So
there?
essentially, it just sits on my desk with the Sonic in it and a couple of pens.
So
I love-
I just want to tell everybody listening and for you guys too, drinking out of the skull of an ex-doctor will not turn you into a doctor. Just in case anyone thought that was a bit of a voodoo trick.
Oh, so I should
Live in hope.
Yeah.
I should send back William Hartnell's skull to his
Yes,
family.
I think you should because I think his family would like it back. Okay?
I haven't heard from them. you know.
No.
What about the shoulders? Can I keep the shoulders?
Yeah, you can keep the shoulders, but
Yeah.
the head goes back. Okay. Okay.
I love that someone was designing the cup and they were like, you have to have the shoulders. Colin Baker is known for his shoulders.
I think they were just trying to get because a lot of them I know the Tom Baker one, it's just his head,
Yeah.
no scarf or anything, just his head and his hat. And I think they were trying to go, well, what's the only thing that really defines Colin was his outfit, so they had to give him
right.
enough to actually give him
Oh,
some
you
of
think
the
you
colors.
walk around and with just the head and people go, who the hell is that you're drinking out of?
That
Why are you-
outfit.
why
Shall we talk about that goddamn outfit? Apparently, they had a variety of outfits. They showed them to, the people who were in charge, and they went, nope, it has to be the garish, most craziest costume. Colin Baker wanted black velvet to go with the darker themed Doctor, but they went with patchwork.
Again, like I said earlier, I think that it worked for it. He didn't know who he was. He didn't know what was going on. He didn't have a sense of fashion. He didn't barely know he couldn't get his emotions in check.
I think he had a bit of fashion from everything. Although, I've got to say, it was the 80s, which is the decade that fashion forgot, except it's coming back. I just went shopping the other day and I walk around going, hello, 80s. Hello, 80s. Hello, 80s.
Well,
I
whereas-
looked at this
whereas
once. I ain't doing it again.
If you want to
Never
dress
going
as
there.
Peter Capaldi's Doctor, then you've got to buy a $1,600 designer jacket.
Yeah.
If you want to dress as Colin Baker's Doctor, you've essentially got to make the jacket yourself.
Well, or just go around op shops. Somebody probably had a big red jacket at some point.
But for Colin Baker, where it's like every section is a
yeah.
different
I know.
thing, I was watching the trial of the Time Lord, and I'm like, is that tweed on his shoulder? And he turns around and there's just one patch is just tweed.
I know.
It's so good. And Chancellor, who you've had on the program,
Yeah.
has one.
Oh, wow.
He wore it onto the TV show when he was on my show once.
Oh,
and,
my
and,
God.
it is fantastic. But you would never wear it anywhere.
No.
But I've always had an issue. Like one of the issues I have with Classic Who is when they decided that the Doctor needed a logo like Batman, so they gave him that question mark.
Oh, yes.
Oh,
yeah.
And it was
Yeah.
on Peter Davidson.
Yeah.
It was on Colin. It was
Yeah.
on Sylvester McCoy.
Yeah.
But I also have always had an issue with the Doctor having a uniform. That's why I liked Matt Smith and Capaldi so much, is because while they had a style, they were constantly different clothes.
Changing, yeah.
Yeah, and I
Tennant
liked
was always the
that
brown
too.
suit. I mean, a couple times he had like a blue suit.
Yeah.
But it was mostly the brown suit. And then Jodie, like, as much as I like the outfit, wouldn't wear it every day. Like, you almost like open her closet and it's like Batman. It's like black leather, black
That'd be
leather,
great
black
if
leather.
there was an episode where they just open it up and it's just the same. Like, is this not what people do? Like,
I
that's what
love
I
the
do.
way when Donna runs into the doctor the second time, she goes, "You're wearing the same outfit. Do you ever change?"
Yeah. Maybe he doesn't sweat.
The companions all wear different clothes. It's just the Doctor who wears the same thing day in, day out.
Matt did for the first 2 seasons was the same suit, and it wasn't until they did that Victoria era Christmas special where he started wearing the more,
Oh, yes.
Victorian
Yeah, we've done
era
an episode
clothes.
on A
liked
Christmas
that.
Carol, yeah.
I love his outfits. And again, he always had the bow tie, never strayed from that. And
I love the bow tie.
he just looks so good in all of his
The bow
series.
tie and the fez.
But Jodie Whittaker's outfit is amazing. I love it.
Oh, it's great.
You
I
know?
just want her to mix it up.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, no, I don't want it to because I already bought mine and I look bloody good in it. And I've got the shoes.
And Missy with that purple suit she wore. Oh,
Yeah.
that was amazing.
yeah,
But
that
see,
was great.
the bad guys, I think, would never change their clothes.
Yeah.
Like, I think they would always say the same. But the Doctor, I think, would be like, you know what, this one's a bit stinky. I'm going to wear a different shirt.
Well, it's like you said, they just have the same outfit.
Yeah, and
Christopher-
their wardrobe
What am I going to wear
regenerates.
today? It'd be funny to see an episode where the Doctor takes like ages to get ready and they go in and they're like, you have the same thing every single day. Why do you take so long? I wouldn't be able to do it now because then everyone would be like, oh, it's talking about women taking too long to get changed. Oh.
I know in the episode, sorry, we're going off track a bit, but in the episode with Jodie Whittaker where Graham says, do you know how to drive this thing? And somebody wrote, oh, if we just had a comment about women drivers in the TARDIS. And I thought, oh my God, no doctor can drive the TARDIS,
No.
men
It's
or
like
women.
Resolution. People watch Resolution and go, "Oh, this is a whole episode about how single fathers are terrible."
Really?
What? Did you not notice the Dalek in that episode?
I think it's a whole episode about Kevin.
yeah.
That's right. But I mean, like, how many
Kevin.
times has the last line of A New Regeneration been, I don't know what I'm doing? Like,
Yeah.
when Capaldi was like,
Yeah.
do you know how to fly this thing?
Yeah.
And even Matt Smith, oh, what are we doing? We're crashing.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right, I'm crashing.
So to get back to Colin Baker, have you listened to most of the audio?
I listen to all of them.
Ah.
I also have all 22 of the books that are about
okay.
the Sixth
I
Doctor.
was
I
gonna
haven't
say,
read the book.
Do you have any recommendations for people who are interested in getting into the Colin Baker as he should have been?
And getting to know him.
One of the best books I always say is a great entry level is The Search for the Doctor, because it has all of them.
Oh,
so
okay.
essentially
Oh,
there's a big
okay.
bad that's going through the Doctor's timeline and has interactions with every iteration of the Doctor up to that point. So the last one they have is Matt Smith
Yeah.
that they deal with, and a lot of them come together at one stage.
Oh,
And the great thing about
really?
that book as well is that it actually takes episodes and rewrites the episodes from an outside point of view, so
Yeah.
somebody lurking in the background. So
Ah.
it goes into a lot of the big iconic moments and then takes the Doctor out, but then drops him right back into where the show would be.
Yeah.
So it's a very clever little
the
book.
Search
for the Doctor.
Search for the Doctor. I'm going to read
And
that
is that a
myself.
series of books or just
It's
a
just
single?
one book.
Oh, wow.
The great thing about the Big Finish ones as well is some of them, they go on from previous stories, but just grab one. And, one episode, like they usually do like a bit of a, if you've missed the blah, 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 but each series is usually self-contained. So they'll reference things, but you don't really need to know. Just grab one. Listen to one of the early Tom Baker ones. He's unfortunately now starting to get the old man lisp.
no.
Well,
which
he's,
was such
he's
an
in
iconic...
his 80s,
Yeah,
isn't
but for
he?
such an iconic voice, it's
Yeah.
always a shame. But he is getting that little bit, like Alan Alda has it too at the minute. Like you can
Oh,
hear
I know,
Hawkeye,
it's sad.
but it's just got that little bit of
All right. Is there anything else you'd like to talk about Colin Baker?
Give him some love and send him some good things on Twitter. Stop
Yeah.
hating on him. In general, it's just stop hating on anyone in any nerddom.
Yeah.
Star Wars isn't
definitely.
ruined because they introduced black characters.
If you don't like the Sixth Doctor, Colin Baker is a nice guy. Like, just leave him alone. He didn't write that series. Even if you do speak to the writer of that series or the Michael Grade
Yeah.
or whatever, don't go and tell them to kill themselves. Don't hate them. And
Don't wish their kids had cancer, for Lord's sake.
Just
fandom
accept
will always
it.
be made by the positivity and the love.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
When you look at the new Star Wars and you look at the new Doctor Who, it's because those people grew up on the ones they love and they want to put their own love into it. And you can't fault that. And if you don't like it, write your own, submit it to Big
Yeah.
Finish,
Yeah.
submit it to BBC,
Exactly,
get off your keister
yeah.
and do something with it.
That's right.
But
Become
no.
a showrunner.
Well, we'll look at Tom Baker as well. He's written Doctor Who books. Not great, but some of them are okay. But he's done it. Colin Baker, go watch the series. Look at it from the lens of they're doing the best they could with what they had.
And I think if you look at the context, if you look at the background of what he was going through, I think it makes you even more determined to find out who that doctor would have been. It does for me.
Oh,
Anyway.
and it's surprising that there's anything half decent from that series, considering how much meddling was being done from behind the
He
scenes.
commits 100%
Oh,
to
yeah.
everything.
Absolutely
And there are flashes
does.
of brilliance in that portrayal, you know.
I do love it when he keeps calling the Valeyard or the whatever his name is, I annoy him, the barnyard or the...
yes, yeah.
And I like it when he calls the two youths that work for the robot, what's he call them, Tweedledum or Humbug and Handbag.
Oh, indignant doctor
Yeah.
is the best doctor.
Yeah.
When he's just
Colin
doesn't
Baker
care.
does it
He's really
so well.
Although I tell you, the one thing I hated the most about Trial of a Time Lord is whenever
Besides the Master?
the Master was only in it for one episode.
Yeah, thank
Is
God.
when the Valeyard keeps calling the head,
The Inquisitor.
sagacity, and I was like, "What the hell?" That word just grates on my. And I looked it up, and it's actually just an old English word for your honor or something. But every time he says it, it's like, "Shut up!" Oh, and the thing I hate the most before we finish, the thing
Let
I
him
hate the most
go.
about Trial of a Time Lord is where they keep cutting back to the courtroom, and it's basically just so they can go, "What is this evidence about?"
Yeah.
Continue watching and you will see. And then they go back and then they come back and they're like, "Oh, see, Doctor, this evidence isn't very good. Oh, but if you continue watching, you'll see."
What I love about fans
true.
on the internet, though, is that they'll take things like that and make them better. A lot of people have redone some of the regenerations, so they're more like the modern ones. But they took the trial and they put people's court music behind it. Doom, 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 you know?
Oh,
We have
yes,
a Time Lord on
please.
trial. You know?
Oh, that's hilarious. It amazes me how clever some of the Who fans are with the stuff that they put out, that they put together, the little videos and the memes. They're amazing. I love them.
That should be the point, is that if you don't like what's going on in Doctor Who at the moment, create your own stuff.
yeah.
Like
Create
the
your own
Doctor Who
fit.
musical that the British girl, she was a girl, she was like 12 or 13 at the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
She made a full Doctor Who musical.
Really?
Oh my god.
And redid the Time Warp from Rocky Horror Picture Show. And she's dressed as David Tennant and looks really good and does a really good voice.
Oh
in the
my
presentation.
god, I have to find this.
Check
This
it
is
out.
Yeah.
We've all
amazing.
done it. I've done one. I did
Yeah.
two, where
Yeah.
I was 2 iterations of myself in,
Yeah.
in the TARDIS and did the whole, I don't like, you've redecorated, I don't like it. At one stage, I get shot by a Dalek, regenerate into somebody who's really buff, but wearing my glasses, and I'm like, oh, fantastic. Get shot again, regenerate back into myself, and I'm like, oh, damn it. You know?
That's so cool.
Yeah, so everyone just get out there and just love your fandom and don't be with the haters.
Enjoy it and get into it and send Colin some love.
But the thing is everyone, when he does pass, and I hope it's not for a long time, the same people who hate him will be like, he was one of the best.
Yeah.
Oh, another class.
saying it now.
Another
Yeah.
legend is gone.
So now, Scott, everybody gets asked their Time Lord name, what their Time Lord name would be if they were a Time Lord. What would your Time Lord name be? What
The
would
Jester.
The Jester.
The Jester. Ooh.
Oh, now you don't know what you're dealing with the Jester, do you?
No, it could be a dark, twisted sense of humor.
Yeah.
It could be silly. It could be goofy. It could be all
You don't know if
over.
you're a good guy or a bad guy until
Yeah,
you
it
start
could just
helping
be
people.
the master of puns.
That's right, and that's evil enough.
That is evil.
And I'm assuming your Time Lord character would start off very confused and
for
probably
sure.
get cancelled halfway through.
And
So
at least choke about 7 companions.
Yeah, I think just choking one is not enough anymore. You've really got to step up your game.
all right, all of you line up. I'm gonna choke you all
Well,
out.
there was a couple times with Mickey where I'm like,
Oh yeah.
Yeah. There was a few times with Rory too, where
Yeah.
and that's nothing against the actor. That's
no.
just the way they write the characters.
It's so funny to watch the Christmas special with David Tennant's first episode, and you can see Mickey realizing like, oh, my girlfriend loved this other man, but then he's in most of the second series.
Yeah,
I'm like,
And he ends up
if
with
you know
Martha.
your girlfriend's in love with another man, you go and find somebody else.
No, he doesn't. He's quite hooked
well, he ends
on
up
Rose.
with Martha.
Yeah, he ends up
does.
with Martha.
And then Martha gets Human Doctor, which is still something
Oh,
I'd like.
Rose gets a human doctor.
Rose,
yeah. Maybe that's all a happy ending. But anyway,
All right, thank you so much for being on the episode, Scott.
pleasure, thank
Do you
you.
have anything you'd like to plug?
Pretty much you can just go to my website, Late Night Media, and that's NITE, Late Night Media, because I like to be different. And that's got all my screenwriting and comedy and links to everything else I do.
Fantastic. Please check that out. Nikia?
All In, again, end of every month on a Friday night, the All In Brewery.
And
I'll
your-
let you
your
know. And
Facebook-
of course, my Nikia Shook comedy.
And check out Nikia's Facebook page if you want to see what her new dates are. If you're
Or
interested,
what did you call me? Nikia Shit in the one or two.
Slip of the tongue, slip of the tongue.
And it won't be
Freudian
the
slip.
first.
You say it once and that's all. Remember how I called you lovely at the start of this episode? Let's remember the good times.
Yes, but we
Before
all
we-
concentrate on the evil,
Yes,
don't we?
exactly. As always, you can follow Adam O'Sullivan Comedian on Facebook and visit thenerdinfinite.com. I have some short stories up there. D4WH is on Facebook. Give our page a like for updates and follow us on Twitter at D4WH Pod.
Please rate and review.
And we're also on Instagram as well at
Yes.
D4WH Pod. That's being looked after by our Beck Tech, so it probably has more updates than Facebook.
Or Twitter, which I'm so slack at.
Help us get the word out. Tell your friends about us. And if you see someone on the street wearing a Doctor Who shirt, politely go up to them and suggest our podcast. Don't savage them. Don't scare them. Don't yell at them that you hate Colin
Don't
Baker.
choke 'em.
Don't choke them. They might not get the reference. They might only be into New Who. Rate and review us on iTunes, recommend us on Facebook, and follow us on Podbean. We're also available on Stitcher and Spotify. And if you're a Colin Baker fan, let us know. Post about it on our Facebook. Let us know. We'd love to hear your opinions. Do they
I have
match
a fan
up?
group on Facebook, Colin Baker Lovers. It's just me and Colin Baker.
Yeah, I'm joining.
And until next time, keep searching the skies for the Doctor. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
This has been a production of The Nerd Infinite. And then the sound of dragons spitting fire and stuff. What? Why are you looking at me like that?